Jean-Pierre Jeunet's 2001 film Le fabuleux destin d'Amélie Poulain is a French classic. Known for its use of bold and eccentric colours, as well as the overall cinematography, the film captures and celebrates the small pleasures in life. Set in Paris, the film follows the story of the sweet and introverted Amélie, played by Audrey Tautou. Due to an isolated childhood, the protagonist constructs a magical world of her own in which she helps the people around her find joy. Therefore, it will be interesting to analyse Amélie's mental subjectivity. Firstly, it is interesting to analyse how the protagonist's mental subjectivity is quite childlike. Amélie sees the world through the eyes of an only child, from helping a man recover a memory box to sending her father's garden gnome around the world. She challenges herself through games while staying undercover and dressing up. Just like a child, Amélie sees how far she can push herself and ultimately learns from these experiences. The special effects used in the film also support the idea that Amélie is a child at heart. The glowing objects in some scenes and the moving animals in the paintings beside her bed all refer back to this idea of childhood imagination. These production elements illustrate her perspective on the world. Amélie's childlike personality leads her to wanting to discover the world around her. She is curious yet innocent, naive, and is easily embarrassed. From her heart glowing to entirely dissolving into puddles, the special effects illustrate her feelings and emotions. The additional colour palette of the film informs the viewers of Amelie's mental subjectivity. The choice of bold and daring colours such as reds, greens and yellows really emphasise the idea that we are submerged in Amélie's fun and playful subjectivity. The use of wide camera angles also subtly remind us that Amélie still sees the world through a child's eyes. The wide framing with Amélie in the centre captures her way of perceiving the world. Paris is at her feet, the world is her oyster, she hasn't faced any adult problems yet, and she has her whole life metaphorically in front of her. Amélie ultimately escapes the adult world through her broad imagination, and her childish mannerisms are presented on screen and thus lets us viewers into this energetic, passionate and magical world. Secondly, it is interesting to analyse how Amélie lives in an idealized world, in some sort of dreamlike reality, where she romanticises the characters, their lives and the world that surrounds them. The third-person narrator, who is also a part of Amélie's mental subjectivity, tends to capture the characters and events in the way Amélie would see them. As she idealises the world around her, the story tends to portray everything in a very romantic way, giving the characters and short storylines a rather dynamic importance in the overall story. According to Amélie's perspective, every character around her has a very fantastical, rich and romantic side to them, no matter their situation. Additionally, her imagination has no limits when creating improbable yet fantastical stories behind ordinary events, such as the numerous scenarios she imagines when thinking about why Nino would be late for their first meeting. In the scene where she finds the hidden treasure box in her bathroom, Amélie sees an opportunity to resolve the case. It is her chance to seek out the answer to this heroic quest and find the owner of the box. As she finds her purpose in helping ordinary people, there is an important nod to a character who has the same purposes in life, Zorro. Also known as the Defender of Commoners, Amélie wears the same costume, not only to stay undercover, but to also romanticise her actions and interferences with the others. She helps them, just as Zorro saves civilians. Amélie is aware that she is the main character in the movie. She is conscious of the camera and breaks the fourth wall on several occasions. In Amélie's world, everyone and everything can be saved, may it be good or evil. She finds happiness and joy in everything. She is their personal saviour, just like Diana was for the world. Finally, the film conveys Amélie's utopian mental subjectivity. Jean-Pierre Jeunet created a completely sanitised and idyllic image of Paris. The director was criticised for removing cars and graffiti from his shots in order to create a clean image of Paris, thus transforming the French city into a picture-perfect postcard. The film manages to display the idea of abundance wherever it is possible, such as through the sets, which overflow with props and intricate details. The visual display of an abundant amount of things alludes to the utopian ideal that one could never be in need of anything, and that poverty is nothing to be concerned about. One could say that the film goes as far as to erase poverty. As Amélie goes to offer a homeless man some money, the man does not accept her kind gift, but replies that he does not work on Sundays. The diegetic score music that accompanies the scene is cheerful and uplifting. The whole scene communicates a happy and light encounter. Additionally, the cinematic techniques such as the lighting and bold colour palettes provide consistency with maintaining an idealised and romanticised version of Paris. As Dinah Oshowitz would argue, the techniques paint a picture of Paris set during the 1930s and 40s, thus reinforcing the stereotypical ideas and capitalistic values of what it means to be French. This alludes to Amelie's mental subjectivity, as it is her own ideals which seemingly shape the world she lives in. To conclude, it is interesting to observe how Amelie's three types of mental subjectivity all connect and intertwine to the theme of nostalgia. From the recollection of childhood memories to the romanticisation of the past, nostalgia plays an important role in the film's charm and appeal. Despite the film's popularity, it was heavily criticised for its lack of representation and diversity. Amelie's world and the city that is presented on screen are not an accurate representation of the real and multicultural Paris. The film bases its style on the pre-existing stereotypes and thus reinforcing an idealistic and small-minded image of Paris and French culture.